This is episode 100. You heard me. You heard me. Yay! This is episode 100. Today, Conversation with Tony Mobley is simulcast on both YouTube and LinkedIn Live. And we welcome radio listeners in Cincinnati, Ohio on Z98. You can hear us on the radio by going to z98fm.com. On Conversation with Tony Mobley, I am talking with some friends and supporters of Conversation with Tony Mobley. This is, again, episode 100 of Conversation with Tony Mobley. Thanks to everyone for being a part of the journey. And I want to thank the team behind Conversations with Tony Mobley for all of your hard work. You can go to conversationwithtonymobley.com and register for our interactive chat, courtesy of Alex Lindsay and 090. There, you can participate in the Mukana chat, where you can put your questions in, and your questions can be voted up or down. Again, just by going to website conversationwithtonymobley.com. And so we encourage you to go there so that you can ensure that your question will be answered. And if you decide that you don't want to do that, you can ask your question in the YouTube chat. And I want to say hello and welcome to all of my panelists today. Thank you all so much for being here with me today. This is a big deal for me today, as I was sharing with everyone before we came on air. I am nervous as much today as I was on episode 1. And so this is very interesting, interesting feeling that I'm having today. But I want to say thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your support over these 100 plus episodes and all of the help that you have provided in terms of hardware, software, behind the scenes, encouragement, instruction, all of the things that have brought us to this point and hopefully will push us forward to what will yet come. And so I'm going to just ask each and every one of you to introduce yourselves. I'm going to go ahead and read the first question, and then you can elaborate. So we'll start with the very first question, which is, who are you, and how are you connected to Conversation with Tony Mobley? And we're going to start with Miss Liberty White.
Hello. I am so excited to be here. Congratulations, Tony. Congratulations to your team and the loyal community that watches on YouTube and contributes each and every week. I'm Liberty White. I got connected to Conversations with Tony Mobley through office hours and just engaging over the past number of years. And to just be here tonight to be able to be a part of this experience, to go down memory lane and possibly talk about what the future could hold, is I'm just honored to be here. And see, I was debating whether I'd wear the blue that I wore on the first time that I was on, but I was like, you know what? It's 100 episodes. We got to go with the little, like Oscar kind of award, Emmy award winning color. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Liberty. We're going to go to Mr. Mickey Macachor, who is coming in from the Philippines.
Hey Tony, thanks for inviting us to be part of your 100th show. My name's Mickey. I'm a location sound mixer and post production sound mixer and engineer for TV shows, films, and live broadcasts. I came to know Tony through an online community of media production nerds. I guess I'd call myself a nerd. Um, uh, called a community called Office Hours, and somehow got involved with the various different community projects, which includes Tony's show.
Thank you, Mickey. And Mr. Tláloc López-Watermann.
I'm Tláloc López-Watermann, and I met Tony also through the same community of nerds. Now, some of you may see that as a negative, but I see that as a big positive because I feel at home in that group. And so we found mutual interest, and Tony and I began speaking about certain things, and I enjoyed helping him through certain challenges he was having with particular pieces of hardware or pieces of software. And then we got to talking about all kinds of things, and we got to talking about some interest that Tony had in making, bringing some of the things that we in the nerd group were talking about outside of the nerd group. And so we began to think about how that might work. And I'm sure we're going to talk about all of that more. I appreciate the fact that you dressed up like an award show at Liberty, because you are showing us all up, and it's definitely a welcome thing to be shown up in that particular way.
And I agree with what everyone has said. I definitely did a no-no. I should have been here with the bow tie that I had on episode 1. And so I didn't do that, because I did learn that it's not good to be on camera with a white shirt. And so that is one of the things that I have picked up along the way with being on Conversation with Tony Mobley. And so we have a comment, and I can't quite make out who it's from, but I'm going to read it. It says, "A giant congrats on your 100th show, Tony. With such a variety of topics and guests, have you thought about giving your website the ability to search, filter, or sort previous shows, or categorizing video by topics or guests?" Wow. Brett Below. Thank you, Brett Below, for asking this great question. And the answer is, the person who would be able to answer that question the best, unfortunately, dropped off just before we were able to come live. So hopefully he may come back before we end the show today. But I do want to say that I think that would be a great opportunity if we were able to do that. Okay, and the next question is from...
Can I jump in there and say I think that's a really good idea, and I think that we'll talk to Kenn, and we'll talk to other people that have helped us with the website and see if that's a possibility. Because the thing about it is that there's some really great episodes for you all to look at. So
I agree. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, and I think this might be from Greg Below again, or Brett Below?
Brett Below.
Brett Below. Tony, how much time do you spend preparing prior to interviewing a guest? What does the process look like? And do you use any special tools or apps for taking notes or gathering ideas for questions? So the process is that I am a super fan of Apple Notes. I just about put everything in Apple Notes. I have a guest panel note that is updated as I get confirmations from my guests. Also in notes, I have contacts with each of my guests. I ask all of my guests to submit a bio and a picture that we can use for advertising. I use I'm just going to draw a blank. I use Pages for my documents for any correspondence. I have a guest letter that I customize for each of my guests, which has all of the information about coming in on mic checks, camera checks, the links to be able to be in the Zoom meeting. There is the guest letter is probably one of the biggest pieces that I have worked on in recent days and recent months of doing Conversation with Tony Mobley, because as I said, I customize it for each guest and I give them an overview if they are not familiar with the process of the show and the kinds of things that we talk about. There is, I'm trying to think what else. I think the most important thing is genuine conversations that I have with my guests prior to them being on Conversation with Tony Mobley. And that really applies to people who are not a part of the office hours community. I have had a wide range of guests from all types of spheres in the world. We've had conversation with educators and mental health professionals. We've talked with social workers. We've talked with people in the theater world, in the movie world, CEOs of primarily computer-related software companies. There are a wide range of people that we've had conversations with. And also we have had a lot of conversation with houses of worship. And part of the reason that we've had these conversations with houses of worship has to do with the fact that one of the reasons that Conversation with Tony Mobley exists, that initially one of the reasons for it existing was that it was an opportunity to ask questions in office hours, which is hosted by Alex Lindsay on a daily basis, which has been on now for every day since 2000, I want to say March of 2020, and it's been on every day. It is a community where I was able to go in and ask a lot of questions regarding a church that was trying to survive the pandemic by being able to have a virtual ministry during the midst of the pandemic. And I was able to come in, ask questions, and because I was able to do that, I was able to sort of grow into this experience that we have that's called Conversation with Tony Mobley. But also I want to mention that the church has had the opportunity to grow and blossom in ways that I had not anticipated. And as of April 16th, they actually did a live performance in an actual theater in Macon, Georgia. And it was a magnificent magnificent performance and worship experience. And I want to say that we did have a few failures, but we did learn quite a bit from actually doing that production. And so I hope that I answered your question. And Liberty, go ahead.
Yeah, I was curious. You actually made a really good segue there with that of this is your 100th episode, and you just shared, some of your productivity tools and how your efforts with Conversations with Tony Mobley has helped other organizations. And I recall a lot of times, even in after hours or when you would ask questions during a regular office hours show, you'd say it's stretching me, and it's something new and I don't know. How did you what did you do to get past all of that, because you're still here and a lot of people would have stopped by now?
Well, you know that you and I have had some prayer meetings in terms of trying to get through some of this. But one of the things that, and I can't think of his name right now, but one of the gentlemen in the early days of office hours said to me that what we are doing by coming to office hours on a daily basis and learning the things that we are learning, let me just say this, office hours is an expensive proposition in order to participate in and be a part of. But what this young man shared with me was that the things that you learn and the tools that you begin to use to be able to participate is really a way of paying tuition for the things that you are learning. And I want to say that and some of you on the panel already know this story, but I'll try to be brief. Basically, when I first came on at the beginning of the pandemic, I was going through a prostate cancer journey. And I was able to, and I'll just say that I was actually dealing with a little bit of depression and a little feeling sorry for myself in terms of, why am I going through this? Why am I experiencing this? Why did this happen to me? And I had the opportunity to participate with office hours, and I was ill-equipped to participate in office hours. I was using at that time, it was a 8 or 9 year old computer. I was in the master bedroom because my wife works from home and she's in the living space doing her work. And I was in the bedroom and it was awful. The lighting in the bedroom, the blinds, the curtains did not keep out the light. It was just terrible. I sounded terrible. I looked terrible. I was awful. All of the things that you're not supposed to do. And office hours embraced me, encouraged me. And the reason that I don't know the reason that they embraced and encouraged me, but they did. And they made me welcome. And when I was ready to quit Liberty, they wouldn't let me. They wouldn't let me. And so one of the things that I was thinking about today, as I was reflecting on my first experience with office hours, was that I had this 2012 MacBook Pro that when I got it, it was all a premium, great device. But in 2020, it was not. And one of the things that I did was I took an inventory this afternoon of what I have now. And I'm not going to risk showing you my setup right now. But what I will say is that I have acquired through sacrifice, personal sacrifice, and through gifts and support of people, my system I would say is valued at probably $8,000 or $9,000 in terms of what I actually am looking at right now in terms of teleprompters and screens, 2 Mac computers, keyboards, Stream Decks, Zoom H6, Apple TV, phones, software, hardware, bright professional lighting, all of the stuff that I have right now, the hardware and the software, the cabling, the adapters, all of that. I believe that hearts and minds were touched because I'm trying to do conversations with Tony Mobley, but I'm just going to say this. More importantly, the work that I was trying to do with the House of Faith. And so when you have been blessed, and I'm not trying to make this a worship experience, but for me, every day is a worship experience. When you go through cancer, every day is a worship experience. When you go through the things that I have gone through, and when you have experienced the things that I have experienced, it's difficult to give up because you have another day to get better. And that's all that I am doing. At this point, I would say I know a whole lot about different parts of technology, but the most important thing that I know is that I still know very little in terms of, and I know that's a contradiction. I know a lot about different components about technology, and my family and friends would tell you they are tired of me talking about technology. But I can't help it. And like Mickey said, we're all nerds and geeks, and that's just kind of the way it is. And I hope that I answered your question, Liberty.
Yeah, you did. And I was like looking at Mickey because when you were talking about just like just your setup and what it looked like, I don't know that I necessarily saw that or remember it as much, but I know Mickey and Kenn and Tláloc, like the whole community, just a lot of if anybody has any stories about just remembering how Tony like the start or even the evolution.
I think Mickey might have something to say about that.
Like in terms of the start of conversations with Tony Mobley.
Yeah.
Well, I first I guess started helping out with the show quite later on because it as we were talking about earlier, Tony, the show started out in a regular Zoom webinar, and then at some point, um, Yo, I believe Yona stepped in and helped set up an infrastructure in the cloud to accommodate and you would be able to tell the story better, Tony, about the I guess
Yeah,
the
I had a
lightning
lightning
strike.
strike.
Yeah.
A lightning strike. I had a lightning strike, and Guy Cochran, who and I don't think he'll mind me saying this, was very instrumental. There was a meeting, and I'll try to be brief again. There's so much that happened in the way in which conversation with Tony Mobley got started. There was a politician in the state of Georgia who was running for office, and I reached out to him. We went to the same college, and I reached out to him to see if I could help him with a campaign that was statewide. And I reached out to the office hours community to help me help him. And because he didn't have any type of he was used to running campaigns in a very traditional way, and that's what he knew. And so we were about to change the world in terms of actually doing a virtual campaign. That's what we were really about to do. And I had reached out to a whole lot of people in the office hours community, and we were having these meetings, and it looked like it was going to be this earth-changing way in which to do politics. And it didn't happen. But I had reached out to all of these individuals to help me help him. And then when he made the decision that he was going to do campaigning in the traditional way, all of these people who had come to say, well, I am in to help you, and I wasn't really in it to help him. And so now that you got all of us together, we need you to go ahead and do your show, do your thing. And that is essentially how Conversations with Tony Mobley gets started. So the two big things were helping the House of Worship and helping a gentleman run for office. And that turned into Conversation with Tony Mobley. So that's the root of how it got started. And then I was just going to do a webinar, and just people come in, we talk, have a good time. And I was really trying to share some of what happens in office hours from the standpoint that it is heaven for nerds and geeks in terms of learning about video production and doing all kinds of things in technology. And during the beginning of the pandemic, my family, I have 6 other siblings. We would meet every Sunday. We continue to meet every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in a Zoom meeting. And I would talk to them over and over again about each thing I was learning in office hours. And they got tired of me talking about office hours and all of the things that I was learning. And so one of my brothers said, you need to share what you're sharing with us, with the world. And so all of these 3 things, my family conversation, trying to help a politician, helping a church, all of these things came together, and that's how Conversation with Tony Mobley got started. So we had this initial webinar that Guy Cochran provided, and I had a lightning strike probably after the 4th or 5th episode. Lightning strike wiped out my internet service, and then Guy got busy and reached out to Jonas in Germany, and that there just became a mushroom of team members to help Conversation with Tony Mobley not fail. And that is, how things got rolling. And so Mickey was a big part of that team that came in that helped us become what we are today. And so I'm not going to say that it's been a smooth ride, because we've tried different applications, Video Ninja, just straight Zoom, and now.
Can I interrupt you, Tony?
Sure.
I want to say that I think, yeah, sure, we changed technology, but that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is the fact that you were able to change the show that you created. It started out as a show about helping people figure out how to look better on Zoom. But it turned into a variety interview show with an incredible amount of different people that, from everybody from the musician for the president to people who help with mental health, and to people who are creating new apps and have different ideas for the world. And it didn't really matter. It didn't really matter who it was. You brought them in, you talked to them, and you brought out things about them that we didn't know. Maybe we didn't even know them. and you introduced them to us, and I think the technology part is secondary.
Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I will say this. There have been a wide variety of range in views of Conversation with Tony Mobley. I mean, extremely wide. As many as 4,000 views on certain conversations, you know, and then we've had conversations where they are just 20 views. And what I want to say about that is, in some instances, there is more value for me personally in the 20 views. And the reason why I say that is that what I hope for in every conversation is that there is an authentic conversation, and that the person who is in a conversation with me feels that they are welcome and heard in the conversation that we have. And that my hope is more important than anything else is that those who are listening are able to glean something from the conversation that is meaningful and helpful and encouraging to them. And so I thank you for your comments. I appreciate you, my brother.
And look at that. We have Kenn Jordan has joined us. So thank you so much for being here, Kenn. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you so much. I'm glad Kenn was able to come back in. And Kenn is coming in from...
Yeah, I'm in...
from Spain.
No, southern France. Well, actually on the border
Southern
of Spain.
France?
Yes. Yeah, and,
okay.
And I can relate to your lightning strike taking you out. Because they actually still sitting right in the middle of a electrical storm, which took out... Well, I'm running from backup power in my RV, so I should be okay. But yeah.
Well, before we go to
here.
the next question, I want you to talk about who you are, and how you are connected to Conversation with Tony Mobley.
Well, yeah, I'm Kenn Jordan. Happier behind the camera than in front. Everything, yeah. I think, yeah, you reached out. It was about the politician and about doing a website, I think, related to that. And then we got around to doing one. Yes, and everything that you just said about, you know, that didn't happen. And then it was all about really building a website for you, so that, you know, all your you can then centrally hold all your content, even though it's all YouTube videos. They're all we have a web page where people can connect and to see the archive of all your stories. And that has been my involvement with you, and also with Office Hours and building their website, and a few others in the community here as well.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being here, and I know it's very early in the AM for you.
Yes,
but I kind of begged him to come on. He was a little bit reluctant, but I more or less begged him to come on, and I'm so glad that he decided to come on and be on with me. And
yeah, it was feeling like, because I was on here early, did the mic check, everything set up, and as soon as time to go live, boom, I was off and think, something up there doesn't want me to come on. But no, I'm glad I finally managed to get it all to work and to be here supporting your 100th.
I remember there was an episode that I was on, that I came from a camper and I lost power, and my friend Jesse Barkle did a name a a lab on how to say my name for the time that I was gone. So, it was pretty well done from what I can tell. I went back and watched it just so I could figure out how to pronounce my own name. But
it was a great lab and instruction, and even though I am still struggling with it, but it is not because I am lazy and I am not working hard to get it. And I don't know if I told you the story, Tláloc, but I went on a family vacation about a year ago. Is it a year or maybe two? And we were in Florida, and we were at a Peruvian restaurant. And I asked 3 different staff how to pronounce your name.
Well, it's the wrong part of the world.
I got 3 different pronunciations.
It's not Peruvian, so that's probably why.
Yeah, it's I do know that I did the research. I did know that it was Aztec, but
that's funny.
Aztec rain god is the proper definition of the name, and but it was interesting. And so I'm going to go to the next question, guys. I apologize. I am very full, and I'm trying to keep my emotions in check, and I did not anticipate feeling the way that I'm feeling right now. So I'm going to apologize in advance. So the next question is, do you have any future plans for a Conversation with Tony Mobley podcast as an additional channel for audio only or video episodes through Apple and other podcatchers? And that is from
Brett Berlau. Brett Berlau again.
Brett Berlau. I would absolutely love for that to happen. There has not been an official conversation about it. And I guess that's what I would say. Okay.
I think that we are constantly reworking how this show works, because it's all volunteer based, and so we have to figure out what resources are available at any given point, what humans are available at any given point, and we have to be cognizant of everybody's needs and changing lives. And so on one hand, it's great to add features, but on the other hand, it's great to refine the ones we have.
I say ditto to that, absolutely. And I'm going to go back to something that Tláloc said earlier, in that it is important to hear people, and it is important to be present. That is foremost in my mind. That is what pushes me. That is what drives me. That's where I'm coming from. And as I said, it doesn't matter to me if it is 4,000 views or it's 20 views, but that the conversation is authentic and genuine. And that is something that I will continue to fight for as we continue to transition and move forward, and as we begin to change. That'll be something that'll be on my mind.
Can I jump in there, because it's even when Tláloc had shared that piece before about it not being as much about the tech as it is about the people, and I don't even know if I missed this in the 100 episodes, so I apologize of like how the name. So you can answer that after. But just even watching all like watching your growth and your evolution. And that's why I asked the question of like how do you get past the fear? Because there are people that are stuck and they don't, they don't step forward, they don't try things new because of fear, which is very valid and very, very true. But then I'm even some of the last, I'll say even like 30 episodes, that like you really are owning this. And I know a lot of YouTubers will say like your first 100 episodes, just throw them away, and it's really, after that, but your conversations have evolved and grown, and you're like really sitting there and listening, and it's very Oprah-esque. And this is what I mean by that, because when she hit her like 25th anniversary, she had shared that like the piece of information that she that has helped her is that people just want to be seen. They just want to be heard. They just want to know that they matter. And that's what I hear when I'm tuning in, because you're like, this person is in the hot, like they're in your chair, and that you see them and that you hear them. And I think I've said it, but if I haven't, that's what I wanted to share. So those are it's your party, you can cry if you want to. Just know that this is your show. So whatever you want to do tonight, this is you. But just giving you your flowers of just being the champion for people who matter.
Well, thank you, Liberty. I am. I cry enough on camera, so I'm going to try to not cry tonight. But yeah, it's hard to describe the fullness of all of this, and I don't know if any of the houses of faith that I interact with are watching tonight, but I thank you for your prayers and people of faith in general who have reached out and been supportive and encouraging. And I will say, in regards to people who have fear, try your best to push past the point of fear, take a chance, take a risk. And I'll be transparent and say that I'm an older person. I've gone through cancer, and I'm going through some things right now. But I don't have fear of those things that I'm going through. If I have fear, it's fear that I don't do the things that I am here to do. I don't always know at the time what those things are, but I do try to push myself and not give up. And I've had tons and tons of failures. And all of us can relate to sports, and we all know the greatness of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and LeBron James and all of the, we celebrate and talk about the made shots, the heroic moments that they've had, but they also had millions of missed shots and failures. And Conversation with Tony Mobley is no different. We've had failures. We've had things that did not go wrong. We've had challenges. We've had, and quite frankly, I am so thankful that minds and hearts of volunteers continues to be touched to help support what we're doing. And if you are a person who is interested, be it a house of worship or a podcast or some type of streaming podcast that you are interested in doing, I want to encourage you to reach out to me and the team behind Conversation with Tony Mobley, because we are doing, I think, something that is amazing. This is a cloud production that is streamed, and it is using a variety of different software packages that used to only be able to be done with significant pricely hardware. So if you want to learn about this is an opportunity for you to reach out to this community of volunteers, because they are more than willing to show you and share with you how to do this. And I'm speaking specifically to houses of worship. If you have a desire to have an in-person experience and a digital presence, you might want to learn how to do Conversations with Tony Mobley. The people who are
Tony,
Yes,
if
sir.
I can chime in, Tony, like harping back to what our Aztec rain god mentioned earlier, uh, the technology or the tools that have been used for this show have changed uh, quite a bit from month to month, year to year. But things that have remained the same are, first off, like again what Tláloc mentioned, you have the conversations that need to be had, and uh, conversations that need to be shared, and also the people, the crew behind this show has always been comprised of volunteers. And although crew members have come and go over the years, everyone has been very generous in passing on the experience and the knowledge. And like even earlier today, as this specific show was being set up, uh, we had Chirag come in and uh, give a crash course in setting some things up, because um, uh, the current regular TD, which is Taylor, is unavailable today, so he's had to give a quick crash course. And also, our rain god is not only a guest on the show today, but he is also cutting the show right now. So having being part of volunteering, like, the more you put in, the more you get out. And and I would totally support what you're saying, Ren. Yeah, volunteer if you want to learn. People have uh come in as TDs and come out with like a whole uh skills totally new skill set of building, or at least having the ability to now build a simple studio in the up in the cloud.
Thank you so much, Mickey, for that. And I just want to share with those who are listening. Today, we are going to be on a little bit longer than our normal hour today. So if you are listening and watching on YouTube and LinkedIn, please feel free to put your questions in. We're going to be going a little bit longer today than our normal 1 hour. So we have time for more questions and comments. So we appreciate those. We're not begging, but because we have enough to talk about. But
there's a few of them there.
And so I just wanted to share with you that we will be on a little bit longer today. And so we have a comment from Mandy Van from YouTube, and it says, "I love hearing your backstory on Conversations with Tony Mobley." Thank you, Mandy Van. Appreciate that. Mickey, what you feel the challenges are in the modern day when it comes to audio and virtual shows like this one?
It's an interesting question. With shows like this, wherein uh, much of the contribution of the speakers or the panelists are is coming from studios that are or setups that are uh, put together and set up by the presenters themselves. And uh, there are many occasions where these presenters aren't exactly the most technically savvy people. So, as someone who's used to being on location or being on set and getting things up and running fairly quickly, I have to pace myself and remind myself that I may be giving instructions or helping someone who is not comfortable with this, and I need to slow down and be patient and work with them to uh get be able to get a feed that is uh of of higher quality, hopefully, than if they were left to their own knowledge and resources with getting this set up. So for me, it's more of that, like pacing myself and making myself more patient kind of thing.
Well, I just want to add that you've been extremely patient with me. I know that sometimes I have worked your nerves, and I appreciate your patience, Mickey. We have a lot of questions coming in, but I do want to take advantage of having all of you on, and so I just want to ask each and every one of you. Um, can you share something that stands out in the episodes that you have watched, and maybe give us a few words on one in particular that might have affected you? And we'll start with Ken Jordan.
Well, actually, just your last episode with Paul, I think it was ones where you're interviewing members of office hours. Is I'm always interested in lots of other great shows as well. It was very interesting. The last one you just did with Paul was just the way that, and I think this is testament to all your shows and your skill set really, is the way that the way that conversation that you had, and you could bring out the stuff, and I think it really, I felt that, I was there, and you really got to the essence of Paul, or the person that you're interviewing, and your skill set on that show. I think is a really shows that it's not about all the tech, and I love the tech and all the cameras and all that. It's really is the way that you can talk with someone and bring out from them, to get, so it feels like you have a much closer relationship with listening to that, about that person, from what you can bring out and how you just talk with them. So yeah, the last one that you just did was I think is a really good one to go back and to look at, to see you in action and you at the kind of top of your game. It's really is impressive. So that one stuck in my mind, obviously, because it's the most recent one that I watched. But I was I felt.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Tláloc López-Watermann.
Sorry, everyone. There's a lot of buttons. I think that for me, my favorite and most impactful show, there are many of them that are really dear to me, but one that was really early on was with Andy Carluccio, and it just it brought out something about his character as a person who works in the theater industry, in the broadcast industry, and just in general in the world, as somebody who's making an effort to change something about how the world works and how insular certain groups and certain types of things, and even just computer programs, can be from each other, and connecting those things together in his way. And I think it was his show that we were still doing panels, which are difficult sometimes, but we were still doing panels. I think I was on there, and I think I bawled the second half of that whole show, because it really just showed the heart in that young man, and I think that's what's special about this show, is that we keep things clean. Tony, you keep things clean. You keep things, in the right area, but you also allow it to go to the emotional. You allow it to go to the spiritual, and you don't dwell in those places. But I think it's a really great extra aspect of this show.
Thank you, sir. Liberty White.
So I'd say that some of my standout for various reasons episodes, the one with Keely Dunn, Lee Michaels, and then also your birthday episode with Catherine Horup. I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly, and I'll try to quickly touch on each of them. So the Lee Michael one, which it was just you, as I said earlier, just you being in your zone, what I like to say, like your genius zone, and just the conversation was just so fluid, and I really could have listened to another hour of you both going back and forth in the storytelling and the history, and how cool it is that this person who has like decades of experience in like traditional radio meeting the like present day communication tool, and how like these two worlds collide. Like it was just, that was like fantastic. The Keely one of you just like pulling out, I was like, I didn't know that, I didn't know that, like all those, all the gems that you pulled out. And then the Catherine interview was like this masterful interviewer and this budding interviewer to like where you are now, and again, the evolution of it. So I would say like those are some of my highlight episodes from what you've done, and yeah, just how you just are able to uncover these things about folks that I may see every day and folks that I might not, but it's like, oh, that I never thought to ask that. So those are some of my standout episodes.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Mickey Macachor.
Yeah, similar to Kenn and what Liberty just said, I think it's fascinating. Like the shows where you interview people that are very familiar to us already, like people we talk to almost every day, but then they come on to your show, and we're able to learn so much more about them. Like um, the you think you know them so well already just because you talk to them, but with your conversations, you're able to open up and dig much deeper. And there turns out there's so many fascinating people in the office hours community. Um, and you had a series, I think a year and a half or 2 years ago, wherein it was almost, I think it was like one after the other, topics about um neurodiversity and uh, and people with uh, um mental challenges, and those were really eye opening because it's not really something that I've thought about much or looked deep into, but those shows taught me a lot, and also the ones with the educators as well. One show that I remember was with Erica Sandstrom,
Hmm.
and learning about how um what the challenges are, like how challenging being an educator is, and specifically an educator in specific communities or specific or educators that focus on teaching specific types of children, and how just how how challenging it is, and how uh tiring it is, and despite being so exhausting and tiring, like what drives them to continue doing it. So those stand out to me.
Thank you, Mickey.
How about you, Tony?
It's extremely hard for me to answer that question. I have had so many amazing moments with so many and um, I'm just going to say that I can't really at this moment. I just really can't say any one particular conversation. There are so many that have moved and impacted me in a positive way. And every now and then I question myself, am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? And something will happen, or I'll get a message, or I'll get an encouraging word that says, that helped me. But one of the things that I have come to understand is that we may never know who and how we help other people, because sometimes it's not for us to know that. And so I guess I'm going to end it in your question by saying that um, I strive to continue to do the right thing and to make sure that I'm going to use a word that Liberty used, hot seat. I I hope that it's a cool seat, and that people feel comfortable and relaxed, and that there is no pressure and there's no gotcha moments or any of that. It's about having authentic conversations, and I have had some amazing ones. If I never have any more, I've had, I'm going to say, 100 great conversations, and I am thankful for that. Extremely thankful for the people who made the decision to have a conversation with me and to give of their time and their talents to have a conversation to uplift and encourage others. And I'll stop there. And I'm getting in my ear that we're backing up on comments and questions, so I'm going to stop. Tony, your show has made me cry once, emotionally, of course. It taught us a lot about your poet guests. Who do you feel you've learned thus far from some of the topics that you have had? I've had a couple of poets on, but I have had Mr. Michael D. Triumphant Jenkins on a couple of times, and he is a friend who was recommended to me by Aaron Huslich and a community of faith that Aaron's mother, I think, was actually associated with. And we have become friends. And he was a participant actually in the House of Worship live production. And he is the artist known as Triumphant. It's Michael D. Jenkins. And
that
he's a
question
good
was from
friend.
Harshid, by the way.
Rashid.
Harshid.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you so much for your private message that I received recently of uplift and encouragement. Thank you, sir, for that. What have Courtney Gooden? We had Courtney Gooden on the show, who represents Hollywood. Who should we get next for a representation of Bollywood? We have had a few office hour members who have not been around lately, but I think could represent that community. But I would ask if you can, we do take recommendations, and if you have a suggestion of a person who we might want to contact to represent Bollywood, we are definitely open to it.
You tell us, Harshid, and get us the contact information. We'll go after it.
Absolutely. I don't mind getting no's. I guys, and let me just say this. Part of, I think, part of what I have gotten to at this point is I don't fear no. I will ask anybody that I think I have been encouraged or inspired to ask to be on Conversation with Tony Mobley. And I'll be frank, I've gotten more no's than yes. But that's okay. I will continue to ask. And I'll stop talking there, okay? The next question or comment is, Tony, gaining access is very important to me, as you probably have learned. Who do you and panel feel about accessibilities, and how has it changed from start of the show and others to present day? So as a former retired special education teacher, I will say that accessibility is extremely important to me. We have actually had my producer and I have had a very, very intensive conversation today about accessibilities and about how, and I hope it'll be okay for me to say this, that we are looking forward to having people who are part of the community that have accessibility issues being a part of Conversation with Tony Mobley in a variety of different ways. And we're looking forward to that happening in the future.
I think we're gonna make it an active part of our volunteer engagement, is to try to bring people in who may otherwise not be able to cut shows on YouTube or whatever, or people who might want to learn, but we need that conversation to happen so that we know how we can help make that happen, because it's a process. So thank you very much for that question.
Thank you very much for that.
If I can just jump in there, because I know for me, in my role in building websites for people, working closely with Laura, I had really opened my eyes even more about the importance of accessibility. Because we always did touch on it in everything that we built, but actually seeing someone with accessibilities, seeing how they see the web, really opened my eyes when Laura was using her screen reader, how it was reading the content that we built and created. Totally changed for me and the way our business works in terms of how we now make websites in terms of being for accessibility, and it just makes them better. It's not something that you think about, oh, it's a burden that you're adding on to your site. It actually makes them better by them being open, but more open to everyone. They're actually helping it for people without accessibility. It just really does make a much better website. So I must, personally want to thank Laura for her time that she spent with me in helping to improve how I build websites. So thank you.
Yeah, I also want to thank Laura so much for being one of the early participants in Conversation with Tony Mobley and addressing accessibility's issue. And she has some things that are going to be happening during this summer. So stay tuned. If you are not familiar with officehours.global, there are going to be some exciting things that are happening during the summer. So you want to stay tuned for that. And Laura's going to be leading us in some accessibility activities on Saturdays during the summer. We have a question from Zachary Sorensen of Queensland, Australia, and his comment is, congratulations on 100th. It is a great honor to be helping from Australia and is a great privilege. And I want to say to Zachary, thank you so much, Zachary, for your consistent participation in managing our YouTube chat. Thank you so much.
I want to say we're gonna bring Zach on to doing more things as the next 100 episodes come along.
And Hashid is back again, and he says, what in the past have you invited guests to speak about that their healthy health journey and yours too? How do you feel this can continue for future episodes? I have had quite a few people who have shared privately with me some of their health journeys. I have not had a lot of people come on Conversations that talk specifically about their personal health journeys. But what I will say is that I try to be transparent about mine. And I've shared that in 2020, I went through a prostate cancer journey, and I was able to get through that. And I rang the bell on June 12th of 2022. And I celebrated that. I continue to be thankful. I am a person who believes in God and have faith, and I am in the midst of another sort of health issues that I am. And I shared with family and friends that this, I believe, is going to be another opportunity for testimony. And that is the way I look at what I'm currently experiencing. It's sometimes problematic to actually have people on to talk about their health journey because they are in various different spaces in terms of how they're dealing with it. But I am comfortable talking about my particular journey in terms of health, and this is going to be something that I want to encourage everyone, regardless to what their age is and where they are. Fight for your health. Fight for your health. What I mean by that is, wherever you are in your health journey, if you are doing things that you know that is not helpful or beneficial to yourself, try to stop. Speak to your higher power. Speak to the universe and try to help you curve whatever it is that's getting in your way. But be intentional about your health from the standpoint of whatever that you can do for yourself to improve your individual health, do it. Do it. Because when you go through cancer or when you go through anything, it's not just you. It is your family. It's your friends. They are going through it with you. So try to be consistent, and it's better to do a little bit of exercise every day than try to do once a week, marathon. I just want to encourage people, fight for your health. Try to eat right. Try to live right. Try to get the proper rest. And be intentional about your own health. And I'll stop there. And we have a question, comment from Beauty Bubble. And I hope she don't mind me saying her name, Rachel. Thank you so much, Rachel. It has been a joy and a delight to see the show continue to reach its 100th episode. The pride is real. XX Beauty Bubble. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. There have been so many, and I'm just going to say that there have been so many people who have been behind the scenes and who have never come on camera. And Beauty Bubble is one of those people who have been encouraging and uplifting and pushing and prodding. And I'm going to share a little bit of story because Liberty told me, she gave me permission. So I'm going to share a story from Beauty Bubble. So in the early days of Conversation with Tony Mobley, I shared with her that she asked me, who is your ultimate guest? Who is your ultimate guest? And I said, oh, I don't know. My ultimate guest, maybe President Obama. I said, but I don't want to talk to him about the presidency. I want to talk to him about the grassroots efforts that he made in terms of when he announced that he wanted to be president and how he used social media to embolden regular people to support his campaign. Because when he first got started, he was a man with a funny name that nobody had ever heard of. And he was able to get regular people to support him and encourage him. And I said, that's who I think would be the ultimate guest, right? And so she said, well, what you going to do about it? And I started laughing. I said, what do you mean, what am I going to do about it? I said, you asked me who my ultimate guest is. She said, but what are you going to do about it? So I said, I don't know. What did you suggest? She said, write him a thank you letter. write him a thank you letter for being on Conversation with Tony Mobley. And I said, what? And so I did it. I wrote a thank you letter. I wrote, thank you, Mr. President. Dear Mr. President, thank you so much for being on Conversation with Tony Mobley. I appreciate you coming on, and I enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much. I folded the letter up, I put it in an envelope, and I wrote on the envelope, President Barack Obama. And it sits on my nightstand today. And this was in the early days of Conversation with Tony Mobley, and it's still sitting there. And I want you to know that because I was able to do that, I had the audacity to actually, I was sent a link to contact President Obama and Mrs. Obama. And I reached out to them and I asked them to be on Conversation with Tony Mobley. I did that. And I did not hear anything back. But I did it. I did reach out to them, and I asked him to be on Conversation with Tony Mobley. And who knows, maybe he'll watch this and decide to be on. But I don't, this is the part where I'm talking about not having fear, because you have to say that to have the audacity, a special ed teacher in Georgia who, works with churches, to have the audacity to ask one of the most powerful men in the world if he would have a conversation with you. I had no fear at all about even doing it. And it's because when it's all said and done, he is a person. He's a human being. And I would treat him like any of my other guests. I will listen and I will respect them and I will be genuine with them. So why should I have fear? I don't. And I know for some of you who are listening and watching, you might say, he is absolutely crazy. They have the nerve to even, want to do that. But I did.
I think this should be a call to action for everyone in the community to go to barackobama.com and
oh boy. Well, thank you, Beauty. She encouraged me to do that letter. So I mentioned that because I have no fear of asking anyone to be on Conversation with Tony Mobley. I have gotten a whole lot of no's, but I have gotten a few less yes from people who are high profile people who have been on Conversation with Tony Mobley. And if you go through these past 100 episodes, you will see some people who are CEOs of companies and music professionals who really probably shouldn't give me the time of day, but they did. They came on. We had great conversations. And I've had conversations with people that you would call regular people. And for me, it's the same. And I will continue to reach out to people who I'm inspired to be on. We have a comment from YouTube. It says his name, but I have to put Doctor in front of it. We have a comment from Dr. John Ittelson. Looking forward to the next 100 shows. Thank you, Dr. Ittelson. Dr. Ittelson is also one of those people who has been behind the scenes, very encouraging, very uplifting of Conversations with Tony Mobley. Another comment from YouTube, Dr. Chris Clark. I'm sorry, did someone say something? We have a comment from Dr. Chris Clark. I have to put doctor in front of it as well. Beautiful celebration. I am in Denver with weak Wi-Fi. So sorry to be unable to join the party in person, and looking forward to 100 more. Thank you, Dr. Clark. Dr. Clark, in the very early days of Conversation with Tony Mobley, was a extremely important advisor to Conversation with Tony Mobley. We started out, first couple of episodes was really about Tony's tech talk, and we were doing labs, and we were doing all kinds of different things. And Dr. Clark suggested that we actually do live labs in Conversation with Tony Mobley, well, in Tony's Tech Talk. And then it turned into Conversation with Tony Mobley. And he has been a ringer for me sometimes when some of the conversations were a little tough. He would always come in with a great question and pick everybody up and push us forward. So I want to thank Dr. Clark so much for all of his continued help and support. Dr. Clark, thank you. Laura Thompson, who is an intricate part of the behind the scenes of Conversation with Tony Mobley, who is an advocate for people with accessibilities, who is one of those people who have been holding me up all along the way, and was one of my initial first few guests. Laura Thompson says, congratulations, Tony. So happy to be part of the community. Thank you, Laura Thompson, for everything that you do and continuing to be a supporter and a bridge to hold me up. I appreciate you, Laura Thompson. Thank you so much. You are speaking to the world. What do you want the world to know? So we're going to start with, I think we're going to start with Mickey Macachor.
Tony, I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. What do I want the world to know? I think
Make sure original sound is on.
make sure original sound is on.
Now you have to tell the reason why you said that. You have to, so that the audience gets the joke.
If you use the Zoom web conferencing platform, turning on what they call original sound, or now they call it original sound for musicians, disables any noise suppression that Zoom is doing. If you're in an environment that does not have much noise, this allows for better fidelity, since audio fidelity, since Zoom is not clamping down on frequencies it likes to kill to get rid of noise. But in terms of what I want the world to know, I think I'll make it more of like what I'd like the world to do, and I think I'd like the world to explore and make. I want the world to make everyone in the world to make themselves familiar and comfortable with knowing other people and cultures. I think that would definitely that is something that would make understanding and understanding of other people's thoughts, and why other people do things, and why um, it, learning other cultures, I think, allows us to makes the world smaller, and would bring people together. I think, I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you,
yeah.
Mickey. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate it. Kenn and Jordan.
Yeah, I think I'll be echoing Icky's statement there. I think divisiveness is we're getting to be more divisive. People are putting themselves in their own silos, and I think really, we want to be more open and don't just listen to points of view that agree with you. To be nothing is as ever black or white. And I think if we can learn to be less divisive, more understanding that everything there is shades of gray, with that, to go outside of your normal, whatever it is, news network or where you get information from, and explore more things and be more open. I think be less divisive, I think is my wish and hope. I think we all need to be open and exploring all different types of things, and don't just be thinking everything is either black or white. There are lots of shades of gray in between, and we need to be mindful of that when we're thinking about things or when we're acting. So that's my small piece.
Thank you, Ken Jordan. We're going to go to Liberty White.
So much wisdom shared. I would say what I would want to share with the world is that I think I might have said this on a past show, but I really do believe that everyone has a gift, whatever it may be, that either the world is waiting on you to find that, to be in your genius zone. Tony, this is one of, because you have many gifts, but bringing us together, all the 100 conversations you've had, something unlocked inside of you, and you are finding your stride and your genius zone, this gift that you have. I feel like if I had a telestrator, I could show like, from your first conversation with this person and how it impacted that person and how it impacted that person. And so as you've shared in this episode of just how you've overcome your fear, how community helped with that, and that ripple effect, that hopefully anyone who's watching would see that, there's this thing I want to try, and to be curious with that thing, because you never know what you'll unlock.
Thank you, Liberty White. Tláloc López-Watermann.
First thing I was going to say is I should unmute myself. In an age where we are told to watch things in 60 seconds instead of 60 minutes, I would like for the world to remember that, in fact, the long form has so much value. To take a little bit of time and sit with something for some time, and hear the silences, and also hear the information, and you can come out of that with some peace, some knowledge, and you can step away from what you thought was so important and see it from a different direction. And so I would ask for anyone who saw Tony's show and felt it's too long, or it didn't go fast enough, or these kinds of things that might cross your mind. And I say that with respect, because it's okay for you to have those thoughts. But take the time and listen. And I think you'll come out with a new being, a new understanding, and I think it's worth it. I'm not going to tell you which one. I'm not going to tell you how many. I just think you should try it.
Thank you so much for that, Tláloc López-Watermann, technical director for tonight, and Conversation with Tony Mobley, producer,
And
full
rain
time.
god.
I do want to say this. I echo everything that's been said, particularly to this last question, and I will add just this little bit. The reason why it's called Conversation with Tony Mobley is because part of me, when I look around at the world and I look around at people of different races, different politics, different economic backgrounds, when I look at all of the different things that are going on in the world, the problem that I see is that people are not talking to each other. And the best way to resolve that is by conversation. And the reason that Conversation with Tony Mobley exists in terms of what it is now is because I hope that people who may not necessarily like each other have an opportunity to talk to each other, to break down some of the things that separate us. And we'll find that we have more things in common than we have differences. So the ultimate hope is that people are able to engage with one another and find common ground and positive interaction. And I am going to stop and say again, thank you to all of my panelists. Thank you to the team behind Conversation with Tony Mobley. Thank you to all of those who are on YouTube. Thank you to those volunteers whose names I may not be able to remember, but are an intricate part of who and what Conversation with Tony Mobley is now. Thank you to those office hour members who have come and gone and have, jumped on and done and are doing exciting business things and video streaming. Thank you for, and I didn't want to start naming names, but I do have to lift up a few names. They will be on the credits, but I just need to lift up Taylor Sunderhouse, Aaron Husledge, Guy Cochran, Alex Lindsay, Chris Fenwick. I didn't want to do this. Dr. Chris Clark, Dr. Ittelson, Liberty White, everybody that's on this panel, certainly everybody that's on this panel, and those individuals who I asked to come to the party that were unable to be a part of the party because of previous engagement. Thank you all so much, so much. I really appreciate it. You encourage an old guy who has always loved technology, who studied about his first combat computer even before he could actually get it, and who loves technology but loves people more than technology. Thank you all so much for this opportunity to serve you in Conversations with Tony Mobley. Thank you all so much. 100 with Tony Mobley. Find something that you like and hopefully it's helpful. Conversation with Tony Mobley can be heard on 98.1 FM. Our radio listening audience in Cincinnati, Ohio. Again, thanks to Taylor Sunderhouse and the team behind Conversation with Tony Mobley for making this happen. Thank you, panelists, for being part of this conversation today, for doing the work that you do, and for being the people who you are. We will be off next week, May 31st. There will be no Conversation with Tony Mobley on May 31st. We will return on June 7th. Looking forward to seeing you on June 7th. Take care, everyone. God bless and good night.